Greetings, X-Zone Nation. This is Attorney Charles Jerome Ware, the author of Understanding the Law, a primer, as well as The Immigration Paradox, 15 Steps for Winning Immigration Cases. I'm at www.charlesjeromeware.com. And I would like to wish Rob, Laura, and all worldwide listeners of the X-Zone Nation a very Merry Christmas and a healthy, prosperous, and spiritually filled New Year.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
You know Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donner and Blitzen. But do you recall the most famous reindeer of all? Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glowed.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the all-new X-Zone Broadcast Network. If you'd like to give us a call toll-free worldwide, 1-800-610-7035. That's 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com, and that is our porthole website that will bring you to the X Chronicles newspaper, X-Zone TV show, Paragators. It'll also bring you to our satellite uplink center, so you can actually look and see if your satellite dish at home receives it, which frequency we're on, and so much more. That's www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is Raymond Buckland. We're going to be talking to Ray about the Wiser Field Guide to Ghosts, Apparitions, Spirits, Spectral Lights, and Other Hauntings of History and Legend. And from the battlefield of biblical ghosts to poltergeists and orbs, the Wiser Field Guide to Ghost, which was published this September, examines categories and subcategories of ghosts across time and cultures, including commonalities and misconceptions. Stories of encounters, legendary ghosts, and haunted places are all covered in this beautifully illustrated compendium, a veritable A to Z of the other world. Joining me this hour is Raymond Buckland, and Raymond has a history of his own when it comes to ghosts. In 1962, Raymond Buckland came to the United States from England, where he had written comedy scripts and was personal scriptwriter for the popular British comedian. In the past 40 years, Raymond has had over 50 books published, fiction and nonfiction, with nearly 2 million copies in print and translated into 17 foreign languages. He has served as technical director for movies. He has lectured at colleges and universities across the country and has been the subject of articles in such newspapers and magazines as the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, New Cosmopolitan, True, and many others. Raymond has appeared on many, many television shows and talk radio shows nationally, as well as in England, Italy, and up here in Canada. And joining me now from his home in Ohio is Raymond Buckland. And Ray, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Tell me, Ray, we're in the year 2010 because we're just a few weeks away. And yet the interest in ghost is getting hotter and more. There's more interest of people showing, towards ghosts and things that go bump in the night than ever before. Why?
I know. Well, why? I think it's because people are less embarrassed to talk about things like that. I think that there has always been a tremendous interest in all aspects of the occult, as it used to be called, or metaphysics, which of course includes ghosts. But I think that people were afraid of being laughed at or thought crazy or whatever. But these days, since the what we generally term the New Age movement came into being about 20 years ago, I think people are not afraid to acknowledge that they have an interest in these things, and they've found so many other people with similar interests that it's almost as though life has become a great club where we can all get together and enjoy our common interests.
Ray, please stand by. You and I have to take our first commercial break for this hour. Ray Buckland's our very special guest, X Zone Nation. Website, www.raybuckland.com. And we're talking about the Wiser Field Guide to Ghost, Apparitions, Spirits, Spectral Lights, and Other Hauntings of History and Legend. Once again, his website is www.raybuckland.com. My name is Rob McConnell, and Ray Buckland and I will return on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break as the X Zone continues from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the all-new X Zone Broadcast Network. And welcome back, everyone. Ray Buckland is our special guest, www.raybuckland.com. And Ray, you and I were talking off air during the commercial break. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is 60 years old this year.
Right. 1949 it first came out. I know because I was at school in 49 and I just changed schools, and it was one of these English public schools where everybody was known by their last name. Nobody knew what their first name was. And the guys there knew that my initial was R, and everybody was trying to guess what my first name was. And finally somebody said Rudolph, and I said, no, it's not. And they said, well, we can't guess anymore, so it's Rudolph. So I became known as Rudolph.
Rudolph Raymond Buckley. There you go.
Yeah.
Tell me, Ray, where did your interest in ghosts come from?
I guess it all started with my uncle, my father's brother, my Uncle George, who was very much a spiritualist. As a kid, I was a devout reader. I read everything I could lay hands on. And one day, Uncle George loaned me a book on spiritualism. And I went through that, and I went back to see what else he had on the subject. And I read everything he had. And from there, I went down to the local library, and I went through the shelves from spiritualism into ghosts and ESP and magic and voodoo and witchcraft and the whole bit. And really, I've never looked back from there.
You know, there are certain people you talk to who look forward to seeing a ghost, and then there are other people who seem to be afraid of ghosts. And as an expert, should people be afraid of ghosts?
Not at all. I think people are simply afraid of what they don't understand, what they don't know. I think the more that people look into ghosts and read books like The Wiser Field Guide to Ghosts, of course, the more they'll understand what is behind the appearance of ghosts and the sound of ghosts. And so they'll realize that there's no need to be afraid of them. Ghosts are not there to harm you. Ghosts are there to make contact for a wide variety of reasons. One of the main reasons is that it's frequently the spirit of somebody who has passed over to the other side, and for whatever reason they're very loath to leave contact with the physical world, and so they keep trying to come back, or they are seen by friends or relatives, or they like to make themselves heard. So there's a lot to do with ghosts, which is not frightening in the least if you just examine it, if you just look at what a ghost is and what causes the ghost to appear.
So are there different types of ghost, or is a ghost a ghost? A ghost is a ghost?
Well, there are many different sorts of ghosts. Basically, we'll break it down into visual ghosts and auditory ghosts. The ghosts that you see and the ghosts that you hear. I mean, many times we hear footsteps or sounds or tappings or scratchings or whatever. I used to live in a haunted house up in New Hampshire, and we had 3 different ghosts there. And there's a good example here. 3 different ghosts. One was very much an auditory ghost. Up in one of the bedrooms, you could hear these footsteps walking backwards and forwards across the room. Sometimes my wife and I would be sitting in the living room downstairs, and we'd hear these footsteps going back and forth. And in fact, one day, the footsteps then started coming down the stairs, and we both turned to look to the door at the foot of the stairs, and nothing happened. Nobody appeared, and I got up and went, and of course there was nobody on the stairs. I went upstairs, there was nobody in the room. In fact, there was nobody else in the house other than the 2 of us. So this was a typical auditory ghost. Now, we had a couple of visual ghosts. We had my wife's grandmother staying with us one time, and she happened to be sleeping in that haunted room. Now, of course, we didn't let her know that it was a haunted room. But in the morning, she came down to us, and she said, a strange thing happened last night. We said, oh, what was that? She said, I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was this woman standing at the foot of my bed. She was dressed all in blue, and she was standing there looking at me, and then she turned away, and she just sort of faded away. She just disappeared. Well, this is a typical visual ghost, a visual sighting. And I had another visual sighting in that same house. One day I was sitting in my study there, and it was an old house. The house was built in 1820. And we had a screened-in porch across the front of the house. And on the end of the porch, there was a screen door, which happened to be very squeaky. So if anybody came, you would hear the screen door squeak, and then they came across the porch into the front door, which was in the center of the house. And I was sitting in my study this one day, and I heard the screen door squeak, and I glanced up, and I saw this man come onto the porch and walk across towards the front door. So I got up and went through to the front door, expecting to hear the front door bell ring, but it didn't. So I opened the door, and there was nobody there. There was nobody on the porch. The screen door didn't squeak anymore. We had a long driveway. You could see there was nobody out in the driveway. So this was another example of a visual ghost.
Now, when does a person become a ghost?
Usually when they die, when they pass over, though there are examples of what I would call living ghosts. This gets into things like astral projection, where it's believed that we all have an astral body, an invisible double, which when we sleep goes off on journeys. And some psychic people can see the astral doubles of somebody else, so they might see what seems to be a ghost, but it's actually the astral body of somebody who is living. But basically, it's most ghosts, I'd say 99.9% of ghosts, of visual ghosts, are the apparitions, if you like, of people who have died, who have passed over. And they might be back, they might be appearing for many reasons. It might be that they had a very traumatic experience, a very traumatic death, and they perhaps refuse to admit that they've died, or they don't understand that they've died. They just don't move on into the next life, the next realm. In fact, there are people who spend their time having seances, having sittings, in order to contact these spirits and to help them move on, to go towards the light, as we say. So some of these people are hanging around for that. Some are hanging around because they've had such a good time here. I went to a haunted house on Long Island, New York, a few years back, and this was haunted, and we found that it was haunted by a young lady who had so much pleasure in this house that when she died, she just didn't want to leave it. She didn't actually live in the house. She lived next door, but she didn't get on well with her parents. But the people in this house took her in, were very, very kind to her. And in fact, when she got married, she got married from that house. So this was a wonderful place to her. So when she died, she just didn't want to leave the house. So this was an attachment, and so many times it is an attachment there for the ghost.
So is it the ghost's own choice whether it crosses right after death or remains after death?
It's difficult to say. I think generally it's sort of an automatic crossing over. When one dies, one proceeds into the spirit world and takes up residence there, or whatever happens after death. But I think there are occasions when, as I said, if there's some sort of a traumatic experience or something that happens at the time of that passing that causes the ghost to sort of think twice about it and think, hey, wait a minute, I don't know that I'm ready to go on, or I don't know that I want to go on. I think then this is what causes the ghost to stay. But I think the majority of time it's, as I say, a sort of an automatic transition and moving on.
If someone has a ghost in their house, should they try and get rid of the ghost, or should they just leave the ghost live in harmony with them?
I am all for leaving them to live in harmony, unless there seems to be a problem with the ghost. If it seems to be we can say this, an unhappy ghost, somebody who's there because they haven't realized they've died, because that they just don't want to move on, because they are afraid of the afterlife, then if you can get in touch with them, and it's simple enough to get in touch with a ghost. If you can get in touch with them and let them know what has happened, let them know that there's no reason to be afraid of moving on, let them to know that this is the general order of things, that we do move on, we go down to the light, we pass over into the spirit world, and life, in a sense, in essence, continues, then it's good to let them know. But many ghosts, I think, are there, if you like, visiting, coming back to enjoy what they've had when they were alive, coming back to visit relatives who are still alive, friends who are still alive, and who are not necessarily there permanently haunting. And I don't think there's any reason to try to get rid of ghosts like that.
Have you ever been attacked by a ghost, or had anything negative happen to you by a ghost?
No, it's very seldom that you hear of something like that. Usually the person on the receiving end is frightened rather than literally attacked. There's really no way that a ghost can physically harm you. They can frighten you, yes, scare the bejeebers out of you, but to actually harm you, hurt you, no. They can frighten you enough that you perhaps fall downstairs and consequently get injured, but it's not the ghost itself who's harming you.
All right, Ray, stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. X-Zone Nation, Ray Buckland is our very special guest. www.raybuckland.com is his website. We're talking about Ghost, the Wiser Field Guide to Ghosts, Apparitions, Spirits, Spectral Lights, and other hauntings of history and legend. If you'd like to give us a call, 1-800-610-7035. That's worldwide toll free at 1-800-610-7035. Email xzoneradiotv at hotmail.com. That's on MSN Messenger. And to get right into my email address here at the X-Zone, it's xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. And of course our website's www.xzoneradiotv.com. That's the portal. My name is Rob McConnell, and this is the X-Zone. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada on the X-Zone Broadcast Network.
Tending their sheep on a cold winter's night. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good time.
Regis Shilkin, author of You Know When, would like to wish Rob McConnell and his production crew, and particularly all the X-Zone listeners who believe the psychic is possible, a very happy, stress-free holiday season and a thrilling new year with great vibes.
Welcome back, everyone. Ray Buckland is our special guest, and in case you don't know this, Exo Nation, Ray Buckland was responsible for introducing Wicca to the United States. He is popularly known as the father of American Wicca. So does that mean, Ray, without you, there'd be no Halloween?
I think Halloween was here long before I was. So the old name for it is Samhain, actually. It's the old Celtic name.
Yeah. Tell me, we're talking about ghosts, and maybe a little later on we'll talk about Wicca. Everybody is getting into ghost hunting these days. You see all these television shows on the cable networks. I, for one, do not understand why everything has to be shot in night shot or night vision, because a lot of hauntings, if I'm not mistaken, half the hauntings happen during the day. So why do they use all this night shot and all this scary stuff, besides America loves to be scared? But is ghost hunting dangerous?
Not at all. And I agree with you. It's ridiculous, these shows. In fact, more than what you said, on so many of these ghost hunter shows, people sort of scream and say, I heard something. Did you hear that? No, I didn't hear that. And they try to build up what is absolutely nothing to make it sound exciting and thrilling. And most ghost hunting is not that exciting and thrilling. It's very mundane. It's very, very plodding. And as you say, it can be done just as well in the daytime as at night. It's just, I think, that people generally think of ghosts appearing at night. Certainly, we are more inclined to associate ghosts with the nighttime, if only because I think probably because we're so busy during the day that it isn't until the nighttime, when we're more relaxed and our minds are more open, that we are more aware of what is going on. As you know, with radio waves travel a lot better at night.
Certainly do, yeah.
You can be driving along in your car and pick up a station from halfway across the country, which you can't do during the day. And I think this ties in somehow with psychic awareness, with the wavelengths, if you like, of ghosts. I think there is something to the fact that ghosts are more prevalent in nighttime hours or after dark than they are during the day. But there's no reason why you shouldn't go ghost hunting in the day, and there's certainly nothing dangerous about it. It can be a lot of fun, but it can mainly be pretty boring.
It's just like a police surveillance. Everybody thinks it's an exciting job, and I know for a fact, after many years on the police force, sitting down and actually doing surveillance, it is very monotonous and tedious, yet it's a very important part of the investigation procedure.
Absolutely.
Tell me, Raymond, do ghosts emanate a light force at night?
Some do, some don't. In fact, there are some spectral lights which are seen in various places, which are just lights. Lights which shouldn't be there, which are sort of seen over an area where there's no roadway, where there's virtually nothing. Some of these can be attributed to things like swamp gas and stuff like that, but there are many where there are very specific lights which are there. A lot of, these days, we see a lot of orbs in photographs especially, which seem to pop up for no particular reason. So there's a lot of energy and a lot of light energy, I think. Not all ghosts need it. In fact, we have a number of what we term shadow ghosts that only show up as a shadow. In fact, I was looking at some video just recently from the Knickerbocker Hotel in Linesville, Pennsylvania, which is a one-floor old hotel, which is really, really haunted. And they have some video cameras set up which are going 24 hours a day just in case anything happens. And they sent me a clip from these the other day, and it was a shot of the nursery upstairs, the old nursery, and it was the top of the stairs coming up into the nursery, and there was nothing there at all, and then suddenly there was this shadow. It was as though somebody had come up the stairs and turned the corner, and the shadow was there and moved around, and it was very, very distinct. There was no explanation for it. It was a shadow. So it's really the opposite of thinking of ghosts as being light individuals. This was very much a dark individual.
But if a ghost is not made up of any solid matter, how can it be a shadow?
Exactly. Well, it's a form that appears to us. Now, it's makeup. I don't know. That's a whole different subject, I guess. We can think in terms of the ectoplasm of spiritualism. But looking at a ghost generally, it's almost like a projected image. It's almost as though you're looking at a video which has been projected onto nothingness, onto your onto the wall, or onto away from the wall, just projected into space, as it were. So it's not made up of anything, and yet it's there. But just as you can project an image of a shadow, then so ghosts can appear as a shadow.
Exonation, Ray Buckland is our very special guest. We're talking about ghosts this hour. We're talking about the Wiser Field Guide to Ghost Apparitions, Spirits, Spectral Lights, and Other Hauntings of History and Legend. Ray's website is www.raybuckland.com. That's www.raybuckland.com. Tell me, Ray, is real ghost hunting, I'm not talking about all this stuff we see on TV, but is real ghost hunting an expensive proposition?
It doesn't need to be, no. You really can go ghost hunting with nothing whatsoever. A pretty general thing is that where there's a haunting, invariably the temperature drops quite noticeably. So if you go to a house which is supposed to be haunted, if you go through it, if you are aware of a drop in temperature, this is a good sign that there is some sort of paranormal activity going on. If you want to get more into it, then yes, you can get things like EMF meters. EMF meters are electromagnetic field meters, and these measure the extremely low frequency magnetic radiation that is around. And you can buy those from anywhere from $30 up to about $300.
Wow.
But the thing is that if you buy something like that, you use something like that, it can seem to indicate that there's a ghostly activity there. But you've got to be very, very careful as to where you're pointing it.
You have to watch out for false readings. Exactly,
yes, you can get a lot of false readings. So this is why I think you can do just as well by yourself. If you can't feel a drop in temperature, then just carry around a little thermometer and watch that. But I think the best way to go ghost hunting is to go to the room or the house, the room, whatever is supposed to be haunted, and just to sit quietly and basically meditate and see what energies you pick up. And invariably, you just get a feel for something that is there without an EMF meter, without a thermometer, without anything. You just get a feel for the energy that is there. You can, of course, use cameras with the digital camera today. Then you can shoot off lots and lots of film because many times you won't see anything or even feel anything. But when you come to look at the pictures you've taken, there's something there, perhaps a shadow, as we mentioned earlier, or perhaps a blob, an orb, a flash of light. All sorts of things come up on the film or in the digital image, which you don't normally see. So it doesn't have to be expensive to go ghost hunting.
You know, when it comes to orbs, I'm sorry, I'm very, very skeptical of orbs, especially since whenever anybody shows me an orb picture, it's with a digital camera, and it seems that the phenomena of orbs has only been around since the introduction of digital cameras with the high-speed flash and the ability to catch what the old standard 35 millimeters and the cameras prior to that could not catch. So how can you tell between a legitimate orb or just a piece of dust or moisture in the air?
Well, I agree with you. I think probably 99.9% of them are dust motes floating in the air. But I've seen some interesting ones. I've seen an orb which has been enlarged, magnified, brought up to the point where inside the orb is a design. In fact, again, I mentioned the Knickerbocker Hotel. I took a photograph there, and there was an orb in it, and I thought, oh boy, another orb. But we enlarged it, we brought it up, and inside the orb there was this design of a bird with its wings spread. And I thought, I recognize this, and I have an old book of Japanese illustrations, and I found this exact image, the way this bird was presented with its wing spread was exactly the same as in this orb. Now, how the heck do you explain something like that? That's not just a dust mote.
That's true.
But the majority, yes, I think are dust. It is resultant from dust. Usually, if you take 2 or 3 photographs quickly, one after the other, you're likely to find that orbs are in pretty much the same position in each picture. If you're taking a picture and there's an orb there or a number of orbs, perhaps large ones, which are only in one of those pictures, then it might be worth examining those orbs. But generally, I think the jury is still out on orbs.
Tell me, is there such a thing as the ghost of an animal?
Oh, yes, very definitely so. There have been a lot of animal ghosts. People who've taken a photograph of, say, of family members, and when they've developed the photograph, there alongside the family members is perhaps the dog that they used to have and died a couple of years back. There are several examples of this. There was a picture taken of a young boy, this was in England, a young boy holding a cat, a pet cat. And when they developed the photograph, alongside the cat he was holding was another little cat which had exactly the markings of a cat they had had previously that had died. There was a boy who was playing hide and seek with his friends in a field of corn, of wheat or corn, and he was running through the wheat, and he came across a dog, almost tripped over the dog, and it looked exactly like a pet that he had, a dog that he'd had named Snoopy, of course, that he'd had that had died a couple of years before. And so he chased after the dog and went running through the wheat and disappeared, and finally he came out on the other side, and there was the rough tombstone that he and his mother had put up, actually a concrete block, over the grave of where they had buried this Snoopy. So there was a very real animal ghost.
Tell me, once again, I have to ask you this. What is the fascination? What do people hope to accomplish by becoming ghost hunters?
Some of them, of course, are just looking for fame and fortune, neither of which I think they will find. A lot of them do it just for the fun of it, which is great. I certainly encourage that. Why not? I mean, if we're going to have a hobby, then let's do something to take us away from the TV set or the computer, something where we can get out and do things. I think it's just the excitement of trying to discover something and to prove something which has not really been proven before. I mean, certainly ghosts generally have been proven, but for you yourself, perhaps you've never seen a ghost, so to go out and try to find one and to perhaps eventually actually see a ghost or hear a ghost, this can be such a wonderful experience. that why not go for it?
Mm-hmm. What has been the proof that has made you, Ray Buckland, believe that ghosts are actually real and not a figment of the imagination?
Well, I mentioned the ones that I had in the house where I lived in New Hampshire. I've since I was about 12 years old, as I say, with my uncle introducing me to the idea and to the books about it. I've always had a fascination, and I've always believed in the possibility, not necessarily the probability, but I've always believed in the possibility. Just looking at the research that's been done, the books that have been written, people who have seen them, and the information that they've provided to back up what they've seen. So many times, perhaps 2 or 3 different people have seen a ghost, and although they've had no contact with each other, they've all described exactly the same thing, exactly the same happening, exactly the same appearance. And things like this tend to make me believe, well, there must be something in it, there must be a ghost there. And then when I have seen a ghost, what I have felt was a ghost, I haven't felt that it was imagination. I felt it was very real. Certainly with the one in my house in New Hampshire, the screen door definitely did.
Ray, we've got to take a commercial break, our final break. Ray Buckland's our special guest, www.raybuckland.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. You're listening to us around the world on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Ray Buckland is my special guest this hour, X Zone Nation. www.raybuckland.com, and we've been talking about the Wiser Field Guide to Ghosts, Apparitions, Spirits, Spectral Lights, and other hauntings of history and legend. And like I said, for more information, visit Ray's website at www.raybuckland.com. Ray, let's talk very briefly about you bringing American Wicca over to here. What's the difference between Wicca and witchcraft?
It depends who you speak to.
And since I'm speaking to the father of Wicca...
Well, originally, going back to Gerald Garner was the grandfather of Wicca, if you like, certainly the grand old man who really started the whole renaissance of interest in witchcraft. He was in England. He was the first man to come out of the closet and say, hey, I'm a witch, and witches are not what people think. We don't worship the devil. We don't do black magic. We're not evil, so on and so forth. He published a book in 1954 called Witchcraft Today, and he sort of started the whole movement. It was from him, he got a response from a lot of people who wanted to join witchcraft when they found what it actually is. And he got response from all over the world, but he didn't get any notice from anybody in this country, in the U.S., who was actually a practicing witch at that time. True covens had virtually died out, so he wanted to get the craft going again here and asked me if I would do it. So I brought the craft here and started the first coven here in 1964. I didn't set out to do anything like that. I just wanted to be a part of witchcraft when I found what witchcraft actually is, that it's a very, very ordinary, it's a religion associated with nature. It's a do-good religion. It's a very positive thing. It worships a god and a goddess. So but
if it, I understand it's good. I know many of my friends are Wiccas. Why has Wicca received such a bad rap then?
Because of the centuries of Christian aspect of it. Originally, the old pagan religion wasn't against, but it was the rival of Christianity, of the new religion, the old religion, the new religion rivalry. As the new religion took hold, so it tried to get rid of the old religion, originally by just converting, and then eventually by destroying, by getting rid of. So when the first printing came into being, Christianity was very much to the fore. So the very first books ever published on the subject of witchcraft were from the Christian point of view, and they depicted witches and witchcraft as the same thing as Satanism and black magic and evil. And later books, their only sources of reference were these early books. So for several centuries, we had this very one-sided view of what witchcraft was. So it's only since the middle of the 20th century that we've had the other side of the story coming out. And it's been an uphill battle, of course, to try to straighten out the misconceptions.
Ray, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Ray BUCKLAND has been our guest this hour, Exonation, the Wiser Field Guide to Ghosts, Apparitions, Spirits, Spectral Lights, and Other Hauntings of History and Legend. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break at 6.5 minutes past the hour as we talk with Colleen Dietzman as the X-Zone continues live and around the world right here from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada on the X-Zone Broadcast Network.